One member of the Mariners 2022 bullpen, the playoff run team, is gone, and another one is speaking out about the team and the moves they didn't make. Plus, we're also going to talk about the Arizona Fall League in this episode of the Hit It Here podcast, episode 32, where we're also going to dive into a maybe disappointing offseason for the Seattle Mariners. But first, Joe, how's it going?
Great. I'm a little sad by the departure of Penn Murfee from the Seattle Mariners. It's one of those situations where he did get injured last year. We all are aware of that. And it was one that we had figured, when he comes back, it's going to be a great addition back to the bullpen. But Colton, where does this move, why does this move happen? Why is he no longer a Seattle Mariner?
Yeah, so with the coming end of the World Series, I think Sunday is the day that all the teams have to have their 40-man rosters set for the upcoming offseason. And Penn Murfee, a guy who's on the 60-day injured list, was of course not technically on the roster. He would have had to have been added back to the 40-man roster, and well, the 40-man roster is full. So the Mariners opted to send him through waivers, take him off the 40-man roster, hoping that he would not get claimed while being injured. And I think he would have been back early next year. No, I don't know.
Not early next year. It would have
Sometime
been.
next
It would
year.
have been. No, he's not. I don't think he's pitching in 2024.
Oh, really?
He's gonna be out like all next year
Okay.
until like probably at least the very end at the earliest.
So, anyways, he was claimed off waivers by the New York Mets. So he will spend all of the 2024 season with them, basically on their injured list. He has to go onto their 40-man roster. I'm not sure if they made a corresponding move. Whatever, I don't care. It's the Mets.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it sucks. Penn Murfee, of course, was a very big part of that 2022 bullpen, and I think that he figured to be a big part of the future Mariners bullpen. Murphy was a bit on the older side. He was, I think, 28 or 29 already. He's a guy who I liked a lot coming up in, speaking of which, the Arizona Fall League. I remember that was kind of his big claim to fame with the Mariners in 2021, I think. During the offseason 2021, he was in the Arizona Fall League tearing it up. So, yeah, it sucks to see Penn Murfee go, but there are guys on the 40-man roster the Mariners didn't feel like they wanted to get rid of. They felt like Penn Murfee was more expendable, and I get that with how good their bullpen is and how good they are at churning these guys out. So it does suck. I mean, Penn Murfee, again, was very good in 2022, very good in the start of 2023. Sucks to see him go, but I don't know. How do you feel about the move?
It's one of those things that we can replace him, unfortunately, to be very cut and dry. It's not a situation that you want to see because again, you're saying very good pitcher, but you're also laying the fact that he is 29 right now. He's going to be not going to be pitching until he's 30. So, as far as relievers go, it is a piece that you can probably let go of and replace in-house or via other means. My, I guess, not like question, but just, I guess, confusion surrounding the roster move is he was already on the 60-day IL.
Right.
And so he couldn't, like, he had to be taken off of the 40. He wasn't already on the 40-man because of that. So can he not stay on the 60-day IL?
I don't think you can stay on it. No, I think that you have to come off of it for the offseason. Don't quote me on that. I don't know that for sure, but I believe that you have to come off of it. And there were some other moves the Mariners made. Keep talking. I'm going to look them up here.
Well, I can tell you that Easton McGee was retained. Adam Oller was optioned to AAA, and Luis Torrens was also optioned to AAA. Those are the other corresponding moves. Congratulations. I'm smarter than you.
Yo, my name's Joe. I had it pulled up already. Cool.
I didn't have it pulled up. Pulled from memory, baby. Anyways, yeah, I think those three moves make sense. Torrens catching depth and, catching. I'm going to put quotes around catching.
Yeah.
Adam Oller is a guy that at the end of last year, when we were concerned about Woo's innings and whether or not, like, Bryce Miller, like, we had no idea as far as how the Mariners were going to look to try and control their young pitchers' innings limits, essentially. Adam Oller was a guy in Tacoma that could have been an option. So, again, it's veteran starting pitching depth. He is Tommy Malone in 2024, essentially.
Yeah.
And Easton McGee, it's in that same way with Penn Murfee. He's not going to pitch until 2025, probably, end of 2024, if anything. I saw one reply. I can't remember who said it, but why not try and DFA Evan White? Take him off your 40 men there. Because no one's going to take his contract. He's set to earn $7 million, I think, this year, right? And so
Yeah,
I don't know
right.
why. I mean, to me, maybe it's not. I don't know. There's probably a lot of nuance that I don't understand. But from a baseball perspective, no one's going to take the contract, $7 million for a first baseman that has not played legitimate innings in 2.5 years, right?
Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that, why they don't wanna do it, and I don't know what all goes into it, like, if you're taking off the 40-man like, maybe the Mariners are keeping him on the 40-man because he's a good person. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah,
Like,
maybe it's to
me
help.
like, there's medical benefits and whatnot
Yeah,
that
and
come
like
with being
they
on the
knew that Penn
40-man, I
Murphy
don't
would
know.
have an opportunity elsewhere where maybe by 2025 when he's ready to pitch again, he didn't really factor into the bullpen because you've got a lot of pieces under club control until then anyways. And it's just one of those situations where maybe it was just time for him to time to move on in a way
Mhm.
and give him a fresh start somewhere else. Not to say that they ended on bad terms or anything. He was very thankful on social media talking about like thank you to the fans, thank you to the Mariners. Let's get started in New York. So it is just one of those situations of new scenery.
Yeah, and speaking of new scenery, a guy that we've talked about a lot lately, and a guy who, at the time you're watching this, may have just lost the World Series. I don't know.
True.
But Paul Sewald had some comments in an interview with Larry Stone, which was it one of Larry's last interviews? Because I know he just retired.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, he's. I mean, I don't know if it was his parting gift, but it was posted on the 30th, so two
Oh,
days
okay.
ago. It was
Recent, recent.
very recent. Yeah, 2 days ago, as of
Gotcha. So
recording.
yeah,
So 3 days from you guys are hearing this, but
Larry Stone, one of the greatest Mariners beat writers ever, and he's been around forever. Love Larry Stone. He had an interview with Paul Sewald talking about, his comments on the Chris Rose show, kind of how things went with the Mariners. You want to read those comments really quick, Joe?
for me, the first comment that stood out in this article and interview from Larry Stone is talking about how Seawald is not part of like Mariners organization anymore. And obviously, duh, he's a Diamondbacks player now. But talking about Larry asked him about his thoughts on how the season ended for the Mariners in 2023. And quote, Seawald said, "Not my team. It's not my team. Some of those guys are some of my best friends." He goes on to say that whatever happens in Seattle is irrelevant to my career now, which felt like, upon reading it, a little blunt, if I'm being honest. But that is, fact of the matter. He is a Diamondback. He plays for Arizona. Those are like the guys that he is going to war with every day now. And speaking of how he got brought into this subject, is talking about his role for the 2022 Mariners. I mean, obviously he was pitching for the 2023 Mariners, but the frustrations that I think everybody has been echoing for a while now, since we have not been in the playoffs and we're watching our former closer pitch in the World Series, is that they felt that they didn't do enough in the offseason and that Jerry and Co. basically have their work cut out for them. That they have to try and figure out how to make the Mariners better, Seawald said in a quote to Larry Stone. And he also goes on to say, I feel like we could have gotten better than we did, speaking about the 2022 2023 offseason. I understand the moves that they made. It's just they didn't work out and it was frustrating. That I don't know if there's a better way to word that because
Yeah.
you understand the moves in principle. You understand bringing in a guy like Colton Wong, a veteran presence who he's not going to light up the page, but he is a, career like a little bit above league average bat, roughly, and decent-ish defender in his heyday. Obviously, he slowed down a bit. We figured Perry Hill would work with him to get him closer to his glory days again, and it just didn't work out. AJ Pollock felt like a sound platoon bat, but now looking back, those don't work. If you try and run it back again this offseason with similar, I guess, plan of attack, it's not going to be pretty. And the frustrations that Seawald is speaking about in this column from Larry Stone, I think it's what we're all feeling. And if it happens again, it's just going to get amplified.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about a disappointing offseason, what it would look like a little bit later on here in the podcast. But it's kind of talking about what Seawald said. Yeah, I mean, we've hindsight's 2020, and Seawald knows that. We all know that. We've talked about it a million times. No one knew Colton Wong was going to be the worst second baseman in all of baseball, possibly all of history.
Whoa.
Nobody knew that AJ Pollock was going to be nothing, a big old nothing burger. So it's like, in principle, those moves were fine, but you can't go into this offseason and say, okay, we're going to add one everyday bat last year, which was Teoscar Hernandez.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to go out and we're going to, add a fringe, like league average, slightly above league average second baseman and a platoon outfielder and call it a day. You can't. You can't go into this offseason saying that. You have to go out into this offseason saying we're going to make some major upgrades. You need, in my opinion, to add two, if not three, everyday players, including a right fielder slash left, a corner outfielder. Um, you know, I still think you need to add someone at second base. I don't know who that's going to be. And then somebody that can play first base when Ty France either, they can kind of move around the infield, first and third base. A guy who can hit for power, a guy that provides length to your lineup. I think that those are the three biggest needs this offseason, without a doubt. Of course, backup catcher. I think
Yeah.
we all agree they should just bring back Tom Murphy. Like, that is I don't know if Tom Murphy's going to get an everyday job somewhere. I'm sure he probably could,
Yeah, I
maybe,
think health
but
concerns would be too much for for a team to warrant giving him a contract that would, or maybe like the promise in a contract that you're going to be the everyday guy. And it's just like he hasn't been healthy, so how can you really justify that means? And I don't know. I agree that a lot of the positions you're talking about are things we definitely need to address. And I think what's interesting about, I guess, the nuance of Seawald's comments is that it does feel gauged to Jerry a little bit. Jerry and Co. However, that is just because they're the face. They are the face of that front office, whereas it's more of an ownership problem that probably isn't allowing the creative control in a way for Jerry and Justin to go out and do what they feel is proper and just for this team. I think that the comments, I understand the moves that they made. Do you think that they wouldn't have tried to go out and get other pieces, like, or bigger pieces than an AJ Pollock in free agency? I would hope that that plan wasn't, plan A. I would have hoped that's probably like,
yeah.
okay, we're only given a certain amount of money. These are the guys in that tax bracket, essentially, what we can afford. This is now like plan B. I would have had to have hoped. And of course, there's no way to fully know that. Process felt sound. Things just didn't work out.
Yeah, and I think that's my biggest takeaway from last year is we all agreed. I was of the feeling as the season came around last year that okay, this team if they all build off what they did the year before, this is going to be a great team. And I still don't disagree with that sentiment. I think that again, if Gino just would have been the guy that he was in 2022, Ty France would have been the guy that he was in 2022, this is a playoff team. 100
Yeah.
no doubt in my mind. Like they are ALCS bound.
Mm-hmm.
Like that team, even if Colton, like if all of these guys just had played to their career norms, easy. And then, we saw the step from Julio. We saw the step from JP Crawford. Right, but they didn't. And, that's baseball. That's the way it goes. The problem, in my opinion, was I've talked a lot about this. The floor of the Seattle Mariners was too low.
Yeah.
They didn't raise the floor because the tertiary pieces, like AJ Pollock, for example, but the bench, when you have Sam Haggerty and Tommy La Stella to start the year, that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That was the problem. Not adding Colton Wong, not adding AJ Pollock. In process and on paper, those looked like great moves. Hindsight, obviously, we look at them completely differently. But those moves specifically were fine in a vacuum until you look at the bench where, who's going to play first base if Ty France gets hurt? Oh, well, it was going to be Tommy La Stella, but Tommy La Stella's hurt.
Yeah.
Sam Haggerty, you don't even get me started. Like, I don't know. I think that the problem was they didn't have a solid foundation for if something went wrong. They said, if this is our plan, it has to go right if this is going to go any way that we expect it to. If something goes wrong, we're screwed. And that's exactly what happened.
What could have been done? And like, I'm not asking you, that's more of like a rhetorical question, but I guess it's more of like a framing for this offseason, what they can do to prevent that going into next year. And for me, the big thing is just like John Stanton to open up his pocketbook, to let them spend a bit more money than they had been allowed to in the past. And I understand, they went out and signed Robbie Ray. They extended Luis Castillo. They gave Julio a gigantic check with, insert
a billion zeros.
Yeah, like just write whatever you want here. And if those were off-season moves, to say that contract instead of given to Julio was given to Shohei Ohtani, it's a very different dialogue.
Right.
But it's about bringing people in and getting people to buy into, hey, this team's good. And it feels like they're losing a lot of I want to say control, because that's not the right word, but they're losing a lot of the clubhouse, it seems like. Whether it's front office or if it's the ownership, they're losing the team, and they're losing the fans as well. I feel like the fans the majority of the fan base has very much so turned on their head very quickly this offseason, faster than I'd seen in the past.
Yeah, because we got the taste. We got the taste of a playoff team for the first time in 20 years. And it felt like the beginning of something really, really special. And it still is. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It still is the beginning of something very special. But 2023 was a step back for the Seattle Mariners. There's no other way of looking at it. I mean, I know Jerry DiPoto says, oh, no, we took a step forward. No, you didn't. You didn't. You lost more games. You didn't make the playoffs. You didn't take a step forward. It's a team sport. So, but so here's my thing. And this may have nothing to do with what we're talking about. John Stanton. I will rag on the guy every single day of my life.
Okay.
But the fact is, and they kind of have to do this, but Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander go out there and say, we have the money to spend. And if that's what they're telling us, and that's what John Stanton's telling us, even if it's not true, and we all know it's not true, John Stanton's not giving them money, but that's what they're saying, they're bringing it on themselves. They bring all the criticism to themselves. They take the arrows because they have to. They can't say, oh no, John's not giving us the money, because then they're fired.
Yeah.
So, but because that's what they're saying, cool. Then it's your problem for not bringing in the right pieces. Like that's the way it is. And to be fair, they tried to sign Trevor Story years ago. Glad they didn't. But they tried to sign Trevor Story years ago. I think they tried to sign like Marcus Semien. They tried to fix these problems.
Yeah.
And the guys didn't want to come here. So the money was there. But the fact of the matter is John Stanton needs to now fork out the money, and he needs to go out and be able to be willing to overpay a little bit, because guys, frankly, free agents don't want to come here. Why would they? With all the players talking out about the front office, all the other problems that are in Seattle, including not making the playoffs, there's not a history here of being a good baseball team.
Yeah.
The travel is terrible. They need a reason to want to come here, and I think that reason may need to be more money, but ultimately, I think this is why Jerry and Justin feel like they have to make so many trades, is because the money isn't going to be there to coax these guys into dealing with the negative things that come with being a Seattle Mariner.
Some positives, though, about the Mariners. Let's turn the table here a little bit. Arizona Fall League, some guys that could raise the floor for the team in 2024. Not a right away. More probably like a early summer, end of summer call-up for some of them. But Colton, Tyler Locklear, Ryan Bliss, they've been phenomenal in the Fall League. What are you, like, what is that telling you about these players?
Absolutely nothing. It's the Arizona Fall League, but no, that's not true. I think this is actually really cool. I love being able to see these guys out there raking. Let me pull up their stats really quick. It's going to look like there's a flashbang on my face. So I have Ryan Bliss's stats here. So far in 14 games, he's hitting 280, 438, 300. He hasn't hit a home run yet, but he's stolen 9 bags in 14 games.
Yeah. Nice.
Ryan Bliss is a guy over there. He's looked really good. Tyler Locklear in the Arizona Fall League has played in 16 games. He has 3 home runs, 16 RBI. He's hitting 302, 395, 524 with a 919 OPS. So that's a guy. And then finally, Harry Ford, who has struggled a little bit. He's only played in 6 games. Is hitting 200, 433, 700, also with 3 home runs and 11 RBI with a 1.133 OPS.
Yeah, limited opportunities there for Harry, but like, again, the pop's there. We've all seen it. We know he did the same thing in the WBC. So I think for him, it's just going to be working on like the more like contact skills. But in 6 games, it's more experience, and it's more experience than he would have had otherwise, right? So even if it's not the best production, I'm not overly upset about the 200 batting average right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and guys, I mean, these are 2 of the 3 guys you could see in 2024, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think Locklear and Bliss can both see time in 2024. So we've talked a lot, people have talked a lot about, we can't get a second baseman because Bliss is going to be the second baseman. Cool, but don't bank on it. Let that be a fallback plan. Let there be a bridge to that gap. Or make sure you make the team better around that so you don't have to rely so much on Ryan Bliss. Tyler Locklear's a guy we've talked about a lot who could be taking over at first base when Ty France leaves, whether that be in a trade or what have you. I think his contract's up after 2025.
Ty France is a free agent in 2026.
Okay, so after 2025. Got it.
Yeah.
So, like, Tyler Locklear's a guy that you could be looking at as well. These are guys who will probably make their way through the minors this year. I would not be shocked to see them moving quickly. Harry Ford, I love the guy. This guy is a gamer. Joe, he is a catcher. He played in the WBC. He played a full season. Now he's playing in the Fall League.
Yeah.
He doesn't stop.
Cannot stop, won't stop. My thing with him is there is this fascination with him as a player because he was the first batter drafted after a flurry of pitchers in terms of top prospects for the Mariners, right? And it's at a premium position like catcher where we've got Cal Raleigh, but we've had some issues with our backups in the past. So having him come up quickly, be the backup catcher, maybe even there's a lot of talk about him transitioning out of catcher in terms of being a more athletic, because he's a super athletic guy. He's a freak athlete being in the field. I'm not sold on him transitioning away from catching because of how little depth we have. I think it would be a poor decision on the Mariners' part unless they go out and like somehow bring in another catcher that's relative, not want to say like young, but I don't know. Someone that's healthy, someone that can be there to allow Harry Ford to not have to be the catcher. But yeah, there's a lot of fascination with him playing ball next year. But out of those 3 guys, I would say earliest Bliss in like May, earliest for Locklear, probably like post All-Star break, like and like early August. Harry Ford, I really don't see it next year for him. I think he's
No,
he's
he
probably
shouldn't be.
he's probably starting out again next year in Everett and then moving up to Arkansas for the second half of the year, if I had to take a guess.
Yeah. So I'm looking at his numbers in Everett, and I haven't actually taken a look at them. Harry Ford might be the most elite on base guy I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah?
This dude sees the Z. He D's the Z. Dominates. 103 walks to 109 strikeouts. 410 OBP.
It's solid. It's very, very good.
So, like, his numbers, they've talked a lot about him being able to play, like, third base, I think is one of the main things for him.
Yeah.
15 home runs, 67 RBI, 24 stolen bags, 103 walks, 109 strikeouts, a 257, 410, 430. Slash line with an 841 OPS in 118 games in 2023 with Everett. Those numbers don't necessarily scream third base. You know what I mean? You're looking for a lot of power out of a third baseman, usually.
Typically, yeah.
And I mean, 15 home runs in the minor leagues, sure. Obviously, that who knows how that translates to the major league level. Put him at second base.
He'd be a great second baseman offensively. No, I don't necessarily disagree with that statement either, though. Is if you haven't found the solution and he is he's athletic enough to play third base, he's probably athletic enough to play second base, so you can probably do it. At that
We're just
point,
pulling
though,
all this out of our ass, though,
yeah,
guys. Just
but
so
at that point, then you're blocking Cole Young, Cole Emerson. So
yeah, true.
It is one of those situations though where I'd say pump the brakes a little bit on Harry Ford. Give him a little bit more time. The guy that you want to maybe make his debut next year is actually Cole Young. If second base still hasn't been figured out yet, Bliss doesn't work out, Caballero doesn't improve at any point, Rojas is like league average of what he's been for the majority of his career, and Cole Young's tearing it up through Arkansas because he's probably going to start there next year because he did very well in Everett. Cole Young's the guy you want in September.
Can I make a statement that's going to have people like that meme from Tangled where all the swords are pointing at him?
Yeah.
If Cole Young or Harry Ford see at-bats at the major league level next year, it is a failure on the Mariners front office.
I don't think that's that crazy of a take. In principle, I understand what you're saying, is that they did not do enough to talk about your biggest point, as in raising the floor of this team. So you don't need these prospects who are developing well, developing quickly, but you don't need them to make an impact like other players, like, that you could have brought in. And there's obviously outliers to this situation, like Evan Carter for the Rangers. I think that's a different situation. Mm-hmm. But who's to say that Cole Young couldn't come up and do that same exact thing?
Right.
We will never know. But if we go into this like 2024 and we see at-bats for them, that's sure a disappointing offseason.
But first, Joe, before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the numbers that Harry Ford and Cole Young will wear coming up. Cole Young will wear number 13, and Harry Ford will wear number 3. He'd take it from J.P. Crawford. Because you know who wore those before? Dustin Ackley and Mike Zunino. All right, both of them brought up way too early, were really good in the minor leagues, and ended up being busts. That's all I can think about when I think about Cole Young and Harry Ford coming up next year. All right,
just they're gonna stunt their growth.
That's right.
It's just gonna end badly. I don't know why you have to take their numbers and like immortalize them as these like these
retire them, baby.
Yeah, like the numbers are just like the martyrs for bad prospect stunting.
Anyway, disappointing offseason for the Seattle Mariners, Joe. Zach Left, courtesy of Zach Left over on Twitter, posted this meme that Joe is definitely putting on screen in the editing process. Talking about check your kids' candy. I just found a disappointing Mariners offseason in my kids' candy. Joe, who are those players?
So I didn't know the guy in the center right away. That was the one I definitely did not know. But far right, Javi Baez. Please God, no. That's just a mess. That would be a mess to even try and deal with the baggage that Javi Baez would bring. Maybe like 3 years ago. Far left. My right. Maybe it's your left. I'm sorry, guys. And audio listeners, you have no idea what's going on right now. Adalberto Mondesi is on the other side, flanking the edge here. Another middle infielder guy that would just be another Dylan Moore, Josh Rojas, probably less than them, if I'm being honest. No digs to Mondesi because he's very fast, like you're saying. But those two guys as the bats you're bringing in, who's playing in the outfield at that point? And then smack dab in the middle, Colton, you had to help me with that one. Who is it?
Yeah, that's left-handed pitcher Brad Hand, which, I guess, so this is the one that I'm actually the most okay with of the three.
Yeah, if you bring him in on like a cheap contract, sure. And then if it doesn't work out, you trade him to the Mets like they did with Trevor Gott. Sure, whatever. But
Like,
yeah, the other two are the bigger problem for sure.
yeah, Brad Hand was like really good a few years ago. I mean, so was Mondesi and so was Javi Baez. But Brad Hand's the guy where if he sucks, he sucks. Whatever, who cares? But if your bats are Javi Baez and Alberto Mondesi, yeah, nope. That's a terrible offseason. I think looking at these guys, it kind of speaks to the larger issue that we all have right now as Mariners fans. Is looking at this offseason, we're all puckered, man. We're worried. This is going to be another offseason like last year where we go into 2024 and we have Walton Kong at second base and J.A. Pollock in left field. All right.
That was really good.
Thank you so much. I'm very creative.
Yeah.
An offseason this year that ends up with what Zach Left posted, which unfortunately I can see happening.
Well, some
Like,
shenanigans.
yeah, I can see that happening.
Mhm.
That is the end all. Like, that's it. The Jerry's fired, Justin's fired, Scott's fired. You're cleaning house at that
What
point.
if that team wins 110 games though?
I will get a tattoo of John Stanton's face on my butt.
There you go. No further questions.
So yeah, if that was the Mariners offseason, I'd be really disappointed. But you know what wouldn't make me disappointed is if the Mariners offseason looks something like this video on the screen right now. Be sure to check that one out. I appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.